What's up, military millionaires? I'm your host, David Paray, back with Mr. Alexander Felice. Long time no see, Mr. I live in Maui now because I picked up my entire life.
Excellent.
Like 2 weeks' notice.
It is
cross country. How you
it's hard to
doing, buddy?
complain when you live here. The weather's perfect every day.
Hey, everybody. If you have not heard yet, we are doing a live in-person real estate event May 19th through the 21st in Tampa, Florida. I would love to see you there. We have 50 slots. 13 are already sold, and it's only open for War Room Mastermind members. So if you are a War Room member, make sure you head on over to the Circle community and grab your ticket right now, secure your spot. If you are not in the War Room Mastermind and you've been thinking about it, hit me up so I can get you that mastermind application and you can get enrolled and get a spot because they're selling quickly. We only announced the spots 2 days ago, and like I said, 13 of the 50 are already gone. So I'd love to have you there. We're going to have some really cool speakers. We're going to do some happy hour, some drinks, some hangouts, some networking, some restaurants, some really cool speakers, guest speakers, keynote, whatever. And we're going to do some property tours and some cold plunges and sauna action. So good times for all. Come hang out. See you in Tampa.
Good. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you back. And today's guest is, this one's actually, well, I should stop saying guests are exciting. This one's terrible. Not exciting, because if I say they're all exciting, then no one's exciting. No, this is Rich Cardona. Rich, Huey pilot, former Marine Corps Huey pilot, which if you've ever heard me talk about Hueys, you know they're my favorite helicopter because you get to ride in the side and hang out the aircraft, which is awesome. Totally. Got out of the Marine Corps, did the corporate thing for a little while, got sick of that, and started producing content. And by producing content, I mean at a very large scale for podcasts such as the Leadership Locker and NFTs for Newbies, which are both podcasts that he made top 100. And he's been lucky enough to have guests such as, you've probably never heard of any of these guys, but like Gary Vaynerchuk or Patrick Bet-David and some of these other really small names on some of the shows that he's run. But he's just crushed it in the content realm. And, we connected online, and I've had a couple different people actually through time introduce me to Rich. And I was like, dude, I just want to get to talk content online because Alex and I both love talking content as of late. And I like Marines because, Alex is Army. So I bring Marines on here to just annoy him. And here we go. So Rich, thanks for joining us, buddy.
I'm thrilled to be here.
I like being the smart one.
Army, so you're probably cool too. But yeah, yeah. There's always a back and forth. But yeah, dude, guys, I'm glad to be here. I am jealous that I'm not in Maui, so congrats on that awesome move. And David, dude, thanks for having me on. I'm ready to give your audience everything I possibly can, however candidly I can.
Rich, let me jump right in here. I moved to Maui to create a video podcast, high production quality video podcast for a guy named Brandon Turner. He was the host of the Bigger Pockets podcast over the last 10 years. They did 100 million downloads. He wrote 5 books, a couple of bestsellers. And he's like, I want to start a new podcast and I want a high production quality. And so I come out here. But that's like the short version. The backstory to that is for the last 3 years, I've been doing video production just as a passion project. I love it. I love cameras. And probably 3 times a week, an entrepreneur will call me up and they'll say, I need you. I need you full time. I need you to take pictures. I need you to help me create marketing. I need you to help me do video. I need to do video podcasts. I need shorts. I need a full-time video guy on staff, and I will pay you a high salary to come out here. And they have a very hard time finding, somebody like me, creative directors. And I imagine somebody like you, I'm not exactly sure what you do. But what I've been telling people is, and this is what I want every entrepreneur to know, this is what I want everybody to, that I say on the internet just about every day now, is that this is coming fast. What I consider to be the merge of creative people and entrepreneurs. I know it is content, but it's more than just content. It's creativity. And this merge is coming. And I've been saying this, and I'm trying to start a community of entrepreneurs and creatives that can get together. And then I hear you're coming on, and I look you up, and I'm like, I believe you believe the same thing. So I'd love to hear, that's sort of where my head is at. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Sure. I mean, let's start with being an entrepreneur. It's like, okay, if you're an entrepreneur, the principles of business would say the first thing you should be worried about is lead generation, right? So how are you going to generate leads, man? Like if you're a startup, bootstrap entrepreneur, if you're a veteran transitioning and you want to start your own business or whatever it is, that's the first problem you got to figure out, right? Well, not the first problem, but what's your service or what's your product? How are you going to reach people? Like, dude, like no one wants to pay for ads. Like it's so completely unpredictable. You're at the mercy of a social media platform, which even if you're doing things organically is completely questionable, right? Like on what you're going to get. So you have to ask yourself, it's like, okay, what's the best thing I could do to get in front of people? What's the easiest way to get in front of people? What's the reach? What are the capabilities? And a lot of that is just going to default to creating content that's revolves around your expertise or your service or your product or whatever. And then you got to do the freaking problem of choosing, well, which platform? Oh, there's Facebook. Yeah, but there's TikTok, dude. TikTok right now is like, but YouTube's a search engine. Pinterest, people are sleeping on Pinterest, but you got to have a podcast because that's really intimate, right? Like you want people to feel like they're in the car with you, listening to you. It's just like this kind of like cyclical pattern of trying to figure out what's best, but you have to pick one. And the reason you have to pick one of these, and you should use these marketing channels, at least one of them as a main channel, is because this is how you're going to reach your audience the best. Word of mouth is by far the biggest compounding way to get interest, but the only way that's going to happen is if you're creating something, in my opinion, long form, which is exactly what you're doing, that you can repurpose in multiple ways across different platforms, whether it's the images, whether it's the media clips, whether it's a blog or whatever it is. But like, what is the thing that can help you create that content machine? That's either going to be YouTube, or it's probably going to be a podcast, or even TikTok, I guess now is doing like 10-minute, you can make TikToks that are 10 minutes long, right? So it's like, what is going to be what juice is worth the squeeze? And the long form content is it. And that is, as you know, Alex, is like, that's the test. Can you talk about things at length about on very granular levels about your expertise? Can you talk about servant leadership? Can I talk about freaking personal branding? Can David talk about real estate? Like all these things, like that's the real test. That's where I think long form content separates the pretenders, because anyone can make a 60-second freaking reel about some bullshit they don't really know about. Period, point blank. And they could follow the system, do the algorithm, they could have the graphics and have the sound effects, and it's like, cool. But you know what, dude? Like what's really paying you is like, I know people right now that I know a guy who got 10 million views on his Facebook reels the other month, and he showed what he got, and it was like 30 something bucks. 10 million views on YouTube, another story. You know what I'm saying? Like think about like it's a so anyway, you just have to look at it. And then podcasting, obviously there's sponsorship opportunities, monetization from some of the platforms. So to answer your question, like I know that was a lot in a way, but dude, yes, it's coming. Like if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a social media presence or educational contents or anything that is like breadcrumbs to what you do and why you do it, then you're probably going to be sitting around just like everyone else and not really making moves and just thinking about the content you want to make, or thinking about why it's a pain in the ass, or thinking about the gear, or thinking about you don't have time to record. And if that's the case, you're making it easier for people like us.
And just for anybody who heard that and is curious, when he says a whole nother story, depending on what kind of content you're filming, 10 million views on YouTube is probably anywhere from $15 to $1,000 in ad revenue alone.
Yeah.
We have this really, there's 2 points you made. You said, hey, you got 10 million views, Bill only made $30. But there's another side of this where our culture is sort of, and I think this is why TikTok has been so, let's say, exciting, right, in short form video, because it is exciting to get a lot of, if you can pack a lot of value into 30 or 60 seconds, like that's a very hard thing to do. So I respect it. And if you can do it consistently and get a lot of, not just a lot of views, but provide a lot of value 60 seconds at a time, it's a tremendous skill, but it is very difficult. But the interesting thing is we sort of did this race to the bottom of the attention span, right? And so now, like, I hear on Instagram, it's like, hey, we're really favoring 3 to 6 second clips.
Totally.
And I'm like, you can manufacture the views really high because you only need 3 seconds of somebody's time, right? But are you actually getting, what is emotional buy-in, or their brand buy-in? When somebody listens to you for an hour on a podcast, it's like, you don't actually have to, I don't want to say you don't have to provide an hour's worth of value, but it doesn't have to be every 30 seconds is something lightning monster. You're getting a lot more emotional buy-in because people don't work in 60 seconds. Human beings, as a, we don't really work in 30-second or 60-second clips. We work with, we have mannerisms and we think and we take our time. And so when somebody listens to you for an hour, they buy into your personality in a much deeper way. And so I think, podcast, I don't know the data on this. I'm just speculating. And I'm curious to know if you have data that I don't, is I think we did this rush to TikTok because they're like, look, you can get all these views. But I'm like, what are you getting from the customer or from the listener? You're just getting one little, I'll watch you once for 10 seconds and then move on. Whereas a podcast, I think you get a lot deeper buy-in.
Oh, shoot, I'm just going to let the two of you talk for 40 minutes of this show, and I'm still going to get some buy-in out of it. So there's your proof.
Here's what I think about that. Like, when you're transitioning, I think whenever you go to some of the absolutely poorly run programs that help us get prepared in the last couple of weeks before we get out, practicing your elevator pitch, I've always thought that was the stupidest fucking shit on earth because I'm like, no one gets hired in an elevator. And two, like, come on, man, like, just think about it. So so what you're saying is exactly right. Like, you could get a snippet, but these are news feed platforms, which mean your content goes to die, right? Like, it goes to die within 24 hours and you are on the hook for making sure you continue to do it over and over. And just like you said, man, like, it was pack it into 60 seconds. Then it's like, well, it's more like 40 seconds now. And it's like, dude, like, what do you expect us to do at this point? So the amount of value you can provide in that short amount of time is also forgettable in that short amount of time because I'm looking at the next post. I'm looking at what LeBron did last night, or I'm looking at what Elon said about this. So that's ridiculous. And as far as like 60 minutes, like if Alex DM'd me a viral video, I would watch it and that'd be cool. But if he sends me a podcast, he's trying to tell me that this is worth 30, 45 minutes or 50 minutes of your time. And he's going to be on the hook for that because if you waste my time, I'm going to be pretty pissed at Alex. That's why I like podcasts and YouTube videos, like they got to be recommendable, right? Like you don't have to provide value the whole time, but what you can do is storytell. You can build it up. You could have lessons throughout. Like there's so many different variables in long form content. And I always like to say podcasting is the most intimate form of marketing because like, we just chill and we just talk. Like I have a better vibe. If I'm listening to this podcast, people have a better vibe of who you are, Alex and David and me or whatever. And that's what people want. It's not as fast and it's not algorithmically based. No one, especially on podcasts, no one goes to Apple Podcasts and just scrolls and looks at a fucking cover art and is like, that looks good, I'm going to give it a shot. Like that's not how it works. Like you got to be vetted by someone essentially. So like that is a demonstration of clear long form content's value if you do it right. So that's where I'm at on that.
And this actually kind of goes a little further back in the conversation, but you mentioned, that a really valuable piece for marketing is word of mouth. And one of my absolute favorite, I guess you could say entrepreneur, business owner, content marketers, whatever, Alex Hormozi, right? I love Alex's stuff right now. He's blowing up all over the internet, but I love it just because it's just packed with value and he, the stuff that he produces is really good. And he's always talking about how word of mouth is the most important and most efficient way to grow a business, and how if word of mouth is working against you, you're going to be fighting the growth of your business the entire way. Like he's like, you can be the most efficient marketer in the world, but if word of mouth is working against you, then every time you increase your ad ROI, you're still going to be fighting in a vacuum and you're going to be marketing to the same group. And so, for somebody who has built several very successful businesses and talks as much as he does about the importance of word of mouth, all of that resonates. And then what has he done? He's sold his businesses and gone all in on content. And I think that alone kind of speaks to exactly what we're talking about and the value of it. If he's recognized, hey, wait a minute, what's probably one of the most efficient ways to scale word of mouth organically? Make shareable, valuable content that people are willing to push around.
He had the podcast that was also a keynote. It was like attention is a new oil. And it's literally a script on how he flipped his mindset from paid ads, which is what made him his fortunes, to now how he could see the long tail effects of what all the organic brand building content he's doing right now and how it's going to pay dividends. Like, it's going to be just the most massive upside for someone who's already got like all the upside, right? Like, this dude who didn't promote his book, which I'm looking at right now, $100 million offers. He just decided, like, I don't even know if I'm going to do anything. And then he just kind of put it out, no dollars behind it, and it blew up. I think it's at like 12,000 Amazon reviews right now. And the reason I know that is because I saw Patrick Bet-David put something out recently about your next 5 moves. And he's like, hey, we're going to order more. I'm doing some signed copies. He's like, we just crossed 5,000 reviews. And that was a book that was promoted heavily. Okay, so like, Alex knows what he's talking about clearly, because he's got more than double the amount of Amazon reviews for something he literally put no money behind, except what he did do was just put time and time and time and time and time into it to make it like a memorable book. And that's exactly what happened. So that kind of line of thinking is what's going to separate people who are doing what we're doing, or who are doing what we're doing, from the people who are just not going to be able to stomach like the long game of content, which I just don't think it's going to go away, man. Like, I just cannot foresee a future where people are going to have to see or listen or read about your stuff in order to kind of find out who you are. And I always like to say, it's not who you know, it's who knows you, right? Like, like, it's just the way it is, man. How are you going to get?
I love that. And somebody,
this is
what they said, social media is dead. Now it's just media, right? And I that really hit me, actually. I think it might have been Gary Vee said that. And it really hit me because I don't really use Instagram for networking so much. I use it. I kind of hate it these days, because now just a personal complaint is everybody wants to teach me something, and sometimes that's just, I'm like, how is everybody an expert? This is a little bit annoying. And so there's a piece of that, but the reality is there is value that rises to the top, you know. And like this Gary Vee piece of content, he's like, it's just media now. And I look at, you know, the old ways of advertising. If you want to go, you know, back to when I was, you know, younger, it was, you know, print, magazines, billboards, radio. And it's like, no one considers that yet. Right. But at the same time, right. At the same time, now people go, they all know social media, but they think, like you said, paid ads. And this switch to organic content, it's so interesting to me, because 5 years ago, everybody sort of knew. They're like, oh, content's the future. I have this is just my anecdotal experience, but the content's the future. Podcasting was blowing up, right? YouTube was, I mean, these are all things that already existed, but they're like, yeah, it's coming. And then somewhere around the last 12 to 18 months, everybody, like, it was like a snap. Maybe it was COVID, I don't know, but everybody snapped, like, oh, it's here and we're behind already. And I don't know what took the mindset shift, and not everybody's gotten there, but even people now who never really wanted to do content, they don't like be on video. They're like, we have to start a podcast, because this 24/7, I'm on my phone, and you only need to get, and this is where the short form, right, I do think is valuable, is you need to get one clip of, you know, I've never listened to an Alex Hormozi podcast, or really, I've only watched a few YouTube videos, but you see those shorts and you're like, wow, that was punchy. And it becomes a lead magnet for the longer form content, which becomes then, now you can sell them anything. If you can get them onto the long form, then they buy in emotionally. And if you can get them, you hook them with the short form, let's say.
I agree, but I just, it's really challenging to have faith in short form. It's really funny what you said. I've been trying to make educational content on Instagram as if somehow I'm going to catch up and Instagram's going to reward me, which it never has. And you're right, man. It's like, dude, what? I literally have to like ask myself, and these are tough questions you have to ask yourself as business owners, and you guys know this. It's like, what's the real reason I'm doing this? And like, I could tell you right now, I've had a conversation with my team today. I'm like, this is fucking completely ego-driven bullshit. Like, I'm at 5,000 something followers on Instagram, and I've been doing Instagram for like 5 years or 4 years. I didn't realize what the hell it was, even when I was like out of the Marine Corps. And like, I'm like, even if I get to 20,000 followers tomorrow, what is that going to do for me? Like, truly. Because I don't even enjoy making that content, right? Like you guys enjoy making this content, which is why you're doing it. I enjoy making this type of content as well. But as far as, you know, everyone providing educational content, like the cat's out of the bag on that one. So everyone's like, I better teach something, you know, and that's when you get, it's just so oversaturated that it's just like, okay, let's separate the pretenders, go to long form. In my
annoys me is all you got to do is say the wrong thing on one of those platforms. And, you know, I hate the like shadow ban phrase, but But God forbid that you say or do the wrong thing one time. And I've never been able to figure out what happened. But like on TikTok, I went from 0 to 99.6 in 13 months. And then I stopped at 99.6, 99,600 followers in September. And I'm now down to 99.3. And that's, 7 months, haven't moved at all, and I'm still posting the same. It's like hit a wall. TikTok was like, nope, you don't get 100. And Instagram, I went from, whatever to like 44.5, and I have not, I'm at 44.3 now. I have not, I hit a wall probably 17 months ago. And Instagram, like my engagement's still good. Like I still get tons of feedback and responses. I get over 1,000 views a day on all my stories. Like I'm looking at everything and I'm like, I don't grow, but the engagement's good. It's better than people who buy all their crap. And, so I'm just like, and I look in my Facebook group, I'm like, I got 1,000 people. I get between 1,000 and 2,000 people a month join my Facebook group. And that's ridiculous. And I'm like, my Instagram can't grow, but the people who own Instagram are pushing my Facebook group. It's just funny because it's like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, I put the same content here as I do there. You guys own this plan. So yeah, it's interesting sometimes because you're like, I don't understand these things. I'm like, I put the same thing on 4 platforms. The same company owns 2 of them, and then the platforms they own, they love me, and on the other platform they own, they hate me. And I'm like, I don't.
So let me tell you this: we went on we did our weekly analytics yesterday, and I have to be super transparent on this podcast. Like my whole like content strategy is, I've been focusing on my clients so much, I kind of just like didn't give a shit about what I was doing until, I don't know, a few months ago. So now we've been tracking and all this other stuff, and without fail, almost every week, like whatever was the top performing post on Instagram was my bottom performing post on YouTube Shorts and vice versa. And I'm like, dude, like this is ridiculous. So everything you're saying brings me to a point. Andy Frisella put this on his story yesterday about how this isn't real. He's like on Instagram talking about how Instagram isn't real. It's so funny. And he talked about a book called The Chaos Machine, and I ordered it immediately. And it's just about how social is like, it's designed to make you feel exactly how you feel. Like, let's throttle it right here. And this guy's just going to be making more content. He's going to feel like he's sucking, and he's going to just invest more time on here and figure all that out. But yeah, it's kind of, what do you do in those situations when you feel like you plateau? It's like you have to reinvent yourself because the platform is telling you need to. And I think that's just like a dangerous place to be. And like Alex, you said you were working with Brandon Turner. It's like, okay, like if his stuff doesn't pop or whatever, like when does the desperation kick in, or when does the anxiety kick in, or when's he going to be like, Alex, like, dude, make this work. Like if that were to happen, it's crazy, dude. So yeah, I think the Facebook group thing you got going on though, I think that's solid, man. I mean, like, to join a Facebook group at this day and age is kind of like, it's almost like, dude, I don't need another group. I try and get out of all the groups if possible. There's very few that I'm in and I'm active in them, and everyone else is, and that makes me feel good. Actually. But that's solid.
But it's so funny.
I will.
Rich, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because I have I'm a humanist, right? I love people. I love human beings. I love sort of the organic nature of human beings. And then we have this algorithm, or these algorithms, and we all know what that word means. Nobody has any effing clue what those algorithms do. But there are some interesting, if you're paying attention, there are some interesting little choices it makes. For example, on Instagram, I know that if I hit a reel that hits like 1,000, it's like a little barrier at 1,000 views. If it goes over 1,000 views, I'm probably going to get 4,000 or 5,000. If it goes over 4,000 or 5,000, I'll probably get 15,000. But there are these little benchmarks in there, and it decides based on whatever it decides on, who likes it, and all these little things. And I'm trying to think of what Instagram would want. Instagram would want me to have anxiety to go make another one. It doesn't want everybody to see my best content. That's not really what it's, how do I say it? Its best interest is not it sharing my content around because my content's valuable. Its best interest is giving me and messing with my ego in a way so that I put more stuff on platform. So, yeah.
Correct. And to help you think outside the box and do something different, so that way it looks like the platform that came up with some different style. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it forces creators to get more creative in the worst way. So that way, like, Instagram is responsible for a new trend that's going to last for fucking 4 weeks before everyone else is doing it. And, you know, it's crazy. Like, it's so funny. Like, I love content, and here we are bashing the hell out of it. But like, you just have to like put up your boundaries, man. Like, you have to put up your guardrails and understand what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. But being a slave to an algorithm is, I cannot tell you how many masterminds I've been in or conferences or whatever, and they're like, this is what Instagram wants, or this is what YouTube wants. But at some point
today.
Yeah, today. And you know what, man? Like, the three of us come from a background where it's like, we were told what to do, how to do it, and whatever. And at least it was for like the greater good, and there was a mission and all that good stuff. But when it comes to social,
no, I'm going to push back on that. I thought we were here to make Instagram money. It's not what we're here to do. We're just like, let me feed that machine. No, obviously just joking.
Yes.
The moment that TikTok got threatened to be banned, Instagram and Facebook shut down monetization on their reels. So their lobbying worked. And I definitely no coincidence or conspiracy at all.
Because this is something that I
in your Facebook group right now.
I'm certainly not an idealist in life. And I'm not even that much of an optimist, but I do have hope. And so I have this hope that I'm disagreeable.
He's something though.
Whatever you guys think is going to happen, I'm going to happen.
Okay.
So right now, you know, everybody's doing this, what you said earlier, which is, what does the algorithm want? How do I feed the algorithm so that I can get clicks and likes, which is it's so much ego driven, and some of it's trying to systemize creativity, which is also impossible in many ways. But what's going to happen over the next, say 10 years? Because I have this hope that people will rise to the top of people-driven content. And you kind of alluded to this earlier about word of mouth. So, you know, does Alex Hormozi, right, is he making the most creative content, right? Or is he speaking to human beings in the most valuable way? And like, it sort of like overrides the algorithm. And so is that part of it where, you know, if you are putting out actual valuable content, if you're trying to chase trends, then you have to be the best at trend chasing. But if you want to put out valuable content for human beings and it's really actually valuable, will that rise to the top above the algorithm over time? Do you believe that?
I think simplification is a strategy going forward for a lot of people in the next 10 years. Like, anything that's complicated means it's an opportunity. Like, who's the doctor who can make content about getting through med school without like wanting to just quit a million times? Like, who's the person who can help give you that strategy? Who is the podcaster who can make it not about the tech, but about your delivery and about the storytelling and about making sure it's longevity and packing, you know, a podcast episode very tightly knit where it's constant value almost across the board. So simplification of complicated things are what matters most. I mean, this is why financial channels, the good ones, do pay CPMs are on YouTube is like ridiculous. I got a friend of mine who's in credit repair. He started Instagram 18 months ago. I think he crossed $200,000 very recently, got 100,000 subscribers. But it's like, Instagram is like, we're going to pay you more because this is valuable content because a lot of people want to get in front of it, right? So it's like, what is complicated that can be turned into simple? Someone like Alex, someone like Gary Vee or whatever, the more they can simplify things, the better it's going to be. So like, I think that is the play. And we've been trying to, you know, really work on that. Like, the content you don't think people need is probably the content they do. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's this Navy SEAL I interviewed. His name is Rich Cardona, and he was talking about, you know, kind of essentially like a CQB qualification course or something along those lines. And, you know, there's people going through it. And the last question they would ask when it was like kind of like a board at the end where they're asking questions, tough military tactical related questions. His question, he said, was always like, do you know how to ride a bike? Yes. He's like, teach me how, just by telling me. And he's like, people would freeze. Like, you're talking about like stellar freaking lieutenants, captains, whatever. They would freeze because they just know how, but they can't explain it. That's the freaking difference right now is like, can you explain to someone how to ride a bike? can you explain this tough content? So that's what I think the future is going to hold. And obviously we've all seen, and I have some content coming out later about this, about Chat GPT and all this other stuff. And this is to your point, Alex, about humanization. It's like, dude, yes. Open AI and all that kind of stuff. There's probably a lot of copywriting jobs that are going to go away, marketing jobs and this and that, or people making, drafting your posts for you and all that other stuff, but nothing will replace human interaction. So what can you do to enhance human interaction when it actually happens in the future? Or what can you do best to simulate it? Like, how can you draw people into your content to make it literally feel like they're talking to you? Something as simple as looking at the camera, right? Like little things. But one thing I want to mention about podcasting is like some of those guests that I was telling you about, like I made it a point to be in person because that would make me more memorable, if possible. Like I'm not going to pass on that opportunity. So I'm like, oh, thanks. You said yes. By the way, I'm coming to you for this. We're not doing this over Riverside or something like that. So that way, at least I had a chance to have a little bit of a bigger impact. But it's a human interaction. It was a human interaction. It was cool. I got to bring them like maybe a squadron patch or something like that. All those little things are the things that we're continuously now more and more taking for granted. And to your point, Alex, essentially like the humanization is not just about like how we could humanize the technological or content aspect of it, but it's like really getting back in the trenches, like, and then just like actually physically talking to people. So you're a complete recluse like I am.
Let me ask you about a trend then, because I see this trend coming in 2023 big time, and we're trying to do our little part for it, is in-person group video podcasts. 4 or 5 people.
Like how big of
Are you seeing this?
Yeah. I mean, I am. I think like my church, for example, they have a amazing little podcast studio in like what used to be a storage room. You would never know. Like it's set up perfectly. Like it is super well produced, and they asked me to come in and check it out. And what I noticed was they rotate hosts a lot, and it's like 5 to 6 people. And if you're doing an hour-long podcast or more, like everyone's going to want to get their 2 cents in. And I think sometimes there's just a little bit, not headbutting, but just there's a little bit of overlap, or someone making sure they get their time, or maybe someone's over talking, or I don't know what, but it could be a little messy. Full Send podcast, for example, I think they have 3 people usually and a guest, and sometimes it's enjoyable, but it has to be, there's got to be some guidelines for that. I do believe it would be enjoyable, but
That's
for the listener, if I'm listening, I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. The video aspect, yes, but the audio part, like who's talking now, or it's just probably a lot.
No, I love that also.
I think less is more.
That's say it that way, and then I think about it, I'm like, do you actually get to buy in to one person, which is really where we're going with, I think, all of content is, and I've said this for a long time, and I think anybody, if you, I'll say it out loud, is like, people are going to be bigger than brands. LeBron has way more followers than the NBA on Twitter, right? People don't buy Tesla stock; they buy Elon Musk.
1,000,000%,
right? And then Tesla, then it crashes 500% because Elon, he's unpredictable.
Yep.
But this has been happening for a long time. And so I do actually think, in retrospect, that if you get 5 people on a podcast and rotating guests, it's like, who are you? What human are you buying into? And if you're just buying into a group of humans, I mean, that's much harder to sort of like, oh, I'm going to get 20 minutes of this one person that I like. It's like, no. It's better if you have, if they listen to the Military Millionaire podcast, they know they're going to get David. If David's the host, they're going to get 30% David and 70% Alex if Alex is the co-host of the day, right? Something like that. But it's like, over time, you're gonna buy into 1 or 2 people rather than 4 or 5. So that's actually really interesting you post that you said that.
I think you're right on that front. And I mean, it's just, how many personalities do you need to get to know at once, right? Like, and also, what if you guys added a 3rd person? Like, I like Alex and I like David, but Stuart, I'm really not feeling Stuart. Like, dude, you just never know. If that other person messes up the balance even just a little bit, you might lose a listener. It might not be the value add that you want. So it just depends, man. It's super tricky, but I'm kind of the belief less is more. I also would say one thing people sleep on, this is just one podcasting thing that I've noticed, is for interview podcasts, like a lot of people don't think they can do solo podcasts. So when I was like dry on guests or people were canceling on me left and right, I was like, oh shit. And I started making some solo episodes, And I'm like literally not exaggerating. Like some of my solo episodes did better than my episodes with PVD or Gary Vee. And I was like, what? And I was like, well, I appreciate that. So that was like a signal, but like you don't want to rely on other people to carry the podcast, right? So like if you are an interview style podcaster out there or content creator, like just keep in mind that you probably have some things that people want from you, not just your guests. Like I believe in being a conduit of information, for your audience from the guest. You're the conduit, but you also have a lot, and don't sleep on solo podcasts. It's a real easy way to, obviously, I think you guys do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? Like, if you guys were dry or something like that, it's like, cool, like easy. Wednesday's just us or something like that. So, there's just something I've learned and noticed with a lot of.
Sorry, Dave. One more thing I want to ask you
myself as well.
What's our rate for? You and I have done a couple of podcasts where it's just you and me on the show, and I believe they've done well. And I'd be curious to hear the analytics on that which to me is always funny because I'm like, who cares about just David and I bullshitting about, basically what comes down to it becomes our personal lives, right? Like, hey, isn't this interesting? We're doing this podcast, but that is a testament to the buy-in when people are like, okay, we love listening to Rich, right? But also, I wonder how many people would listen to a David and Alex reflect on the Rich Cardona podcast next and just sort of do that, like, hey, for every one guest, then we have a reflection episode and it's just us. And I wonder how much, I do wonder what those dynamics are when you say like a solo podcast.
Well, if I'd been able to just talk without you asking the question.
Sorry.
What I was going to say is that, Alex and I have done a couple where it was just the two of us. I'd have to look at analytics to get a better answer, but we got decent feedback, at least from them, where people reached out. So they were well received. They didn't bomb, right? So, I mean, if they'd bombed, we wouldn't have done them again. And I just did the first ever, like, legitimate solo one on my own,
Nice.
Somewhat recently, just when Alex I think it was the same weekend you were in LA, and I was just like, I'm going to film one. And I just answered a bunch of random questions that were in the Facebook group and just talked for like 40 minutes. And, I don't know the analytics on it, but I mean, something kind of well received. One of the thoughts, Alex and I are looking to kind of revamp the show structure going forward and dial down on it, and just, add more value to the show going forward. And one of the thoughts that I'd had, and we haven't talked about any of this, but talking to a friend or two was, potentially just adding in like a couple episodes here and there throughout the week where it's like maybe Alex just records like a 5 or 6 minute like thing that he thinks of where it's just an Alex clip, and that's an episode that goes out on a day that's not a normal episode drop, or a David clip, or the two of us, or like there's shows where they do, an extra episode or two a week where it's just a really small, like 5 or 10 minute thing that someone can listen to on a commute, where it might even be just a audio excerpt from a YouTube video that fits into a commute really well. And I think that's kind of a cool thing to play with that we haven't messed with at all. So some cool things people are doing.
I have 3 thoughts on that. I think what you think about is what you should talk about. Within the parameters of the basis of the podcast, like you said, like if I get on and start talking about like, man, my wife and I got a big fight the other day, it's like, like maybe it's relatable, but maybe not. But like what you think about is what you should talk about. I think about podcasting. I think about social media strategy. I think about networking. I think about business, whatever. That's one. The other one is what you mentioned is like picking audience comments, questions to hone in on, I think is brilliant, and not enough people do that. Like that's where all the gold is, right? Because they're not the only one with that question. So whether it's a comment and if you shout them out and happens to show up on your Facebook group, like, hey, Tim, I answered your question. Like that's like the best engagement, right? So there's that. And the third thing is, there's a concept of a creator, her name's Sarah Dishi, a long time ago. She told me, she's like, one for me, one for you, one for me. Like this is all about a content that your audience wants and desires, and then something that you want to make as well. But this is the kind of thing that will probably reduce the potential for burnout, or for you to be like, you know what, I'm freaking done with this. Like you have to talk about what you want to talk about. And as long as you could do it intelligently or creatively or with storytelling, or add in some of the things that will make it better content, that's what's going to make it more sustainable over time. There's a fitness guy I follow. His name is Jordan Sayat. He used to be Gary Vee's personal trainer. And I had him on a long time ago talking about like, dude, I was in the best shape ever when I was deployed. Like it was crazy. And he's like, yeah. He's like, that's completely unsustainable. He's like, it was the most, under the intense conditions, you know, you had this shithole gym that was 100 degrees or whatever, because it was basically outside, you know, and all this other stuff. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, just craziness. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't go just like buy protein anywhere. I like had to eat what we used to call hamsters, you know, the chicken cordon bleus and stuff like that. So, and it's just like this very unique situation where I was like super jacked. And it's like, if I come back into civilian world, wife, children, job, whatever, you know, all these different factors, like it's not sustainable. So what is the way you can make it sustainable? And like those things that you're talking about is exactly it. And the quantity, I think in podcasting specifically, quantity can win, like up to a point. I think like if you're at 4 episodes a week, that's crazy in my opinion. I had a guy who was doing 7 days a week and I was like, dude, you're in your Tesla with the worst connection ever talking about like for 2 minutes about something. You really want us to edit this, or how about you just fucking toss it? Because it's not a value add. So there's a fine line, but those 3 things I think matter a lot. You have to do something you're going to be willing to create. You have to be able to say to yourself, I'm going to do this at least 5 years. Point. And if you can't say that,
part for me, especially somebody me, like I change my interest every 5 years. So, you know, it's like I did real estate for 7 years. Now I'm going bananas on cameras, and I've done cameras for six years, photos, and 3 years video, and I'm going to probably do it for another 5 to 6. I'll do cameras for my whole life, but whether or not I, you know, have the passion about content for the next 10 or 15 years, I don't know. But let me ask you about, for our listeners, right? All our listeners they want to buy real estate, right? They want financial freedom. They're generally either in the military or they're a veteran. Probably, my guess is they probably recently exited based on our demos. And they're like, hey, I want to do content because I know it's valuable. And so the thought, I'm sort of generalizing, the thought goes, well, I either want leads to buy houses. I want leads for somebody to buy a house from me. I want to raise capital from private investors. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make content that educates people on, you know, basically what I do, whether it's real estate or the market that I'm in, or these sort of like around this idea. And what I find is, certainly for me, is that real estate and investing is a medium. It is a vehicle to go do something else in life. Almost always. I can't speak for everybody. Some people really like building businesses, but even if they really like building businesses, that doesn't mean they always want to build the real estate business. And so what do you say to somebody that looks at content solely as a marketing play, right? And they're like, I have to educate so I can people know, like, and trust me, and I can build this you know, reputation, and then people will either invest for me, buy from me, or be a customer of mine. But they don't actually give that much of a fuck about teaching real estate all day, and then they get burnt out because they talked about the wrong thing. So how can you bridge that sort of gap?
That's tough, man. That's so many people. The reason that's tough is because you have an expectation of what the content is supposed to do for you right away. And then you start asking yourself the ROI questions, the you know, how much is this worth my time? Should I be spending time with my family instead? Or, you know, like, dude, and even as someone who does this for other people and does it for myself, like, you guys know the fucking deal, man. Like, you say, dude, we got a podcast today. Even if it's like, you ask someone to have a podcast, you ask someone to, I mean, you guys could have said that right before this show. Be like, man, I hope he cancels. That'd be awesome so I can go fucking surf. Like, come on, man. So, like, look, 10 times worse if you don't give a shit about what you're doing, truly, and if you expect some sort of monetary gain off of it. Like, the minute content becomes something that is supposed to do something for you, is probably going to go the opposite direction real fast. And your content's going to suck anyway, because you're not going to invest all the time you need to make truly educational content. Now, the caveat, Alex, I would say is if you're documenting the journey, that's different. Like, I literally once had an idea with a friend of mine. It's like, dude, the VA sucks. Like, how can we make it easier? Like, let's film us walking into the VA and be like, why do I need to fill this form out again? Or like, okay, like, what's the cheat code? Like, I need to find the coolest VA employee who's going to walk me through all the things that's going to get me 100% disability, right? Like, who are the people out there who could do that? That is documenting the journey, because like, you truly don't know, and you're just allowing other people to guide you. That, I believe, is different. But if you just want like real estate as a medium, or content to act as a medium for real estate to act as a medium for you to get financial freedom, like, there's already layers to that. That's just going to fuck you over in the long run. So I would just, Yeah.
I love it so much. I started my platforms, the From Military to Millionaire was literally me as a sergeant in the Marine Corps with one house when Brandon was like, you want to learn about blogging so you can write a book? You should start documenting your journey in real estate. And I was like, oh, fuck, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Let me document shit. And it was like, my first few articles are like, how to use the advanced search features on Google. I learned this cool thing. You can use parentheses to do, like just shit that I was learning. It's just me documenting whatever. And I tell people that all the time online. I'm like, dude, don't spend the money on the freaking brand shit and the fancy schmancy like branding guide and kit and editor and all this shit to make yourself look like an expert so you can sell stuff. Just document what you're learning and document your journey, because it's so much more valuable when you're starting out. Like, I think, actually Hormozy says it, like the idea that one of the reasons he's documenting as he's building out his content thing is he's like, what if Bezos or Musk had documented when they started Tesla or Amazon and they documented the building of the company? I'm like, yeah, that's a cool idea. That would be cool to see.
Yep. I completely agree. I mean, to that point, it's a lot of us wouldn't do some of that now, especially if we thought we had a really, really high chance for success, because it's like, I don't want to give my secrets away. And now I'm learning, like, dude, if you're able to make better content than the content people are paying for behind a paywall for that course or that whatever, then like you're going to be on fire. People by default are going to be like, if he's providing this for free, what can I do? Or like, why would I not work with him? Why would I not join that mastermind? Or why would I not hire him as a coach or whatever? So I'm going to give you guys some freaking gouge that I got at a mastermind recently. There's a friend of mine who's in the real estate industry up in Canada. He's like, I buy all my competition's courses. And he's like, and I see what the fuck they're talking about. And he's like, I just make better content. And a bunch of people in mastermind are like, dude, that's so cheating. He's like, this is capitalism. He's like, I'm raising the bar. He's like, I'm going to make better content than them. And his stuff is solid, super high quality. And he's got the Lambos and stuff to prove it. And he's proud of his cars and shit like that. But he's proud of it because he had posts about it from 2017. He's like, I'm going to drive this by this year. So that's like kind of like seeing it come to fruition. But I don't think he's super materialistic or anything like that. He's proud of what he's done, but he also wants to raise the bar for the industry or the type of content that the industry is making. And I'm like, I never thought of
such a good idea. I've never done that.
I'm like, that's savage.
I love it.
It is, dude. It is. I mean, he's shameless. And I'm like, he doesn't look at it like he's doing anything wrong. And I don't want to say he convinced me that he's not, but like, of course, like, you don't think NFL teams watch tape all day on, during the week for the teams they're playing Sunday? Of course you are. So it's like, yeah, man, like that's a lockdown.
Of course, he paid them. They made their money.
Yeah.
They should have charged. I'm sure there wasn't a button that said, "Oh, you got to pay more if you're gonna
Target be walking into a million Walmart before they launched to say, like, what are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? Like, let's go investigate our right. Or my favorite one is people go, how come you gas stations are always across the street from each other, or a McDonald's and a Burger King are always next door to each other? And I'm like, oh, because one of them did all the market research, built the thing, and the other one said, the customers we know that they know the customers are there. We'll save money. Yes. Build one right next door. We don't have to do all the same market research. I mean, no. I mean, anybody who thinks, you said savage, anybody who thinks this is unethical is out of their fucking mind. I mean, this is just smart business. You have to know what your competitors are doing, and then you should outcompete them. And if one thing, if he was stealing, like, hey, I'm going to steal my, but stealing is unethical no matter what the purpose. So if you buy the product,
my media kit, my podcast guest page, my about me, they're all modeled after Up My Influence, Josh, and he was the one who told me, he's like, dude, just go take mine and repurpose it for your stuff because it works.
The most successful people are happy to give you the cheat codes. In my experience, like, I literally have a call in a little while, like about 5 minutes from now, with someone who's absolutely way further ahead than me and younger than me in podcasting. And I'm just like, kind of astounded. And she's open for calls anytime. And she's like, yeah, hit me up. I'm like, I got this pricing question because this is something I keep running into. She's all about it. But people who are like kind of on my level are like,
I mean, I love about the real estate industry.
No, I hope figure it out.
Because right from the very beginning, when I found the real estate, investing community, it's the most abundant mindset people that I've ever met. Whereas camera people, photographers, are the most guarded set of people that I've ever met. They're like, oh, I don't want to teach you how to use the camera, as if they have some secret fucking. I'm like, look, Son does all the hard work. Okay, you're not doing shit, right? This point, right? You get a secret. It's very mindset. The more successful you live in life, the more abundant mindset people get. That's just sort of the nature of what I've learned, because they realize I'm like, I can tell you everything that I know. The likelihood that you're going to go off and do it, and then secondly, most of what I do is around my personal strengths and weaknesses. So like, I'll teach you what I do, and then you have to apply it to your strengths and weaknesses, but you can't do what I do. Nobody can go with the camera and make what I make. I don't care if you know the settings or equipment. We're going to shoot different things, or we're going to produce different things, or we're going to say different things, or we're going to interact with people in a different way.
No.
So I can teach you everything because you can't be me. And if you take it and you do better than me doing what you do, I can't do that either because it's you. So
yes. And there's 8 billion people on the planet. Like, it's yeah, it's okay if someone else has an audience too. Like, I'm sorry, you're gonna get 0.0000001% of them, maybe. But yeah, man, I'm with that 100%.
Yeah, Rich, I know you've got to run here just a second, and I know we've probably spent the last 50 minutes beating the horse. If there is no secret to this, I'm going to ask you anyway, if there is a secret, or what the one piece of advice that you would give anyone who's looking to start the content journey or just grow their.
I would say I'll stick with video podcasting since that's hot right now. Generally is like, I think take advantage of YouTube. So Spotify has spent like over $1 billion pushing podcast stuff for the last few years. YouTube is just now starting to invest in like select creators that have audio only podcasts. And they're, I think, have grants up to like $300,000 or something. But YouTube is just now putting money on it, which means video podcasting became a thing organically on the second biggest search platform in the world. It's owned by the largest one, right? So I would say if you're going to make content, absolutely double down and make it a video podcast. So that way, at least you could put it on YouTube as well. And hopefully you get discovered, and then you could get in that whole fucking searchability game and all that other stuff as well. But kill as many birds with one stone as you can. So like, have something that makes a content machine. A video podcast right now, if you're into what these guys are doing, is exactly the way. And you could just repurpose it a million different ways if you want to. You could ignore some of the short form content places if you want as well. But like, if at least there's a repository for it and it's not going to disappear tomorrow. Take advantage of it while they're pushing it. They're making new features, new pages on YouTube. You can upload podcasts to YouTube Studio from your desktop. Like, there's all kinds of things. And that's where we're kind of diving into right now as a team, just like really looking at all the ins and outs. But I think, and that's what I'm going to do, obviously. So it's like, that's where I'm going with some of the stuff we're going to make here shortly. But that's what I would say. But yeah, I mean, there's just really no secrets, man. It's just like, I think Alex nailed it. It's like, everyone can do the same thing. We're just all going to do it our own way. And you'll win one way or another if consistency beats intensity every time. So it's like, that's the true name of the game, I guess.
I love it. And where can people get a hold of you if they'd like to reach out?
Oh, I hate Instagram, but you can find me there, dudes. At Rich Cardona _. I'm on LinkedIn, which was what my breakout platform was. So it's Rich Cardona. Oh, dude, me too. But yeah, Rich Cardona, LinkedIn, and there'll be podcasts out soon, and I'll make sure I get in touch with these guys. Or now that I'm in the Facebook group, I'll go to the Facebook group and give you an update there. But I was absolutely honored. It should be
talk to you more. I mean, I know you're busy, but I have a good way of shoving my life into other people's lives. So I'm gonna reach out to you on Instagram and sort of annoy you until we're friends.
Please do. Please do.
It's the best way of describing it. That's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
I call it this networking style Stockholm syndrome. So. You're fucked now.
Well, yes, let's stay in touch for sure. Enjoy Maui. Dave, thanks for the invite. And like I really had a great time talking to you guys, and absolutely let's stay in touch. Happy to talk about life.
Hey, thanks for letting me host the show.
Stuff.